We're entering that time of the off season where you start to have analysts making their bold predictions, making projections for what teams are going to be in the playoffs, how good certain teams are going to be. And the stat that I hear constantly thrown out there, the first stat that anybody used before they give any analysis that is incredibly overused and meaningless, is returning production. I cannot stress this enough, how meaningless returning production is in this new age of college football. Just because you have a team that returns a lot of starters from last year, a lot of production from the previous season, doesn't guarantee that they're going to have a good season. Now, what is returning production? Returning production is not how many starters you bring back. It's just how many guys that actually produce during the game or have some numbers that return for you. And last year, Stanford was top 5 in returning production. They returned 85% of their production from 2023, and they finished 3-9. They also returned 88% of their production in 2022, and they finished 3-9 that season. So the 2 years where Stanford was top 5 in the nation in returning production, they finished 3-9 both years. What about Oklahoma State? They, before last season, were in the Big 12 championship game. Ollie Gordon was the Dolt Walker Award winner. They returned their starting quarterback, Alex Bowman, just for them to faceplant in the worst way possible, returning 85% production and finishing 3-9, being the worst team and the worst conference in college football, that being the Big 12. How about Kentucky? They went 4-8 in 2024, something that I never would have thought a coach as good as Mark Stoops would be capable of doing, returning 72% production. But this just goes to show how overused and meaningless returning production is in college football. Notre Dame only returned 54% returning production last year, and they were in the national championship. They finished 14-2. Tennessee, they went to the college football playoffs only having 48% returning production. Alabama, when they won 11 games or more in 2022 and 2023, they only had 65% returning production those years. You don't need to have a team of all your guys coming back to be able to make a run. The most important thing is, for one, how well do you recruit? The teams that are always in the national title picture every year are the teams that consistently recruit in the top 10. That's why returning production doesn't matter for schools like Oregon, Texas, Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama. I get really pissed off when I'm arguing with somebody on social media about one of these blue blood programs, and they like to throw, oh, they don't return a lot of production in my face. Like, it doesn't freaking matter, dude. Oregon, Georgia, and Alabama, LSU, these programs are football factories. They don't rebuild, they reload. Recruiting still means a lot more than utilizing the transfer portal. Player development matters a lot as well. You can bring in a great portal class and still disappoint. LSU went all in the transfer portal last year, and they didn't come anywhere close to reaching their goals. Returning production is not the end-all, be-all when it comes to evaluating how good a team is going to be, but yet you see this stat thrown out so much. That's what, before anybody ever gives you analysis on how good they project the team to be, the first thing they lead off with is, oh, they return so-and-so much production. Virginia Tech returned over 80% production last year, and they were viewed to be a huge sleeper team. Just for them to disappoint. Returning production is meaningless now. With the transfer portal, name, image, and likeness, it doesn't freaking matter anymore. There were several teams, not just several teams last year, but the average win total for teams that return over 70 to 80% of their production is only 5 to 6. There are more variables that goes into determining how good a team is going to be outside of just how many guys they bring back. It's about your coaching staff. Do you have your coordinators coming back? Do you have continuity on your coaching staff? How good is your quarterback? Returning production is just so small when you look at how good a team's going to be. Most of the times, the teams that are good or the teams that are able to have a lot of guys come back over a span of 2-3 years. If you were a team that was terrible on defense, but yet you return all of your starters from last year on that defense that sucked, it doesn't matter how many of those guys come back, because how many of those guys that contribute to your returning production that are actually good? Maybe not too many. Same thing for offense. The returning production number is just so misleading, because when you look at it, you think the teams that always do good always have veteran teams, when that's not necessarily the case. The only team in the college football playoffs last year out of 12 squads that made it that had 70% returning production or better was SMU at 78%. Other than that, everybody was no higher than 70 or 69%. Returning production is just so minuscule when it's just so many different variables that goes in to determining how good a team's going to perform. And that's why this stat is just so overused, because just saying a team returns like 85% of their production or their top 5 in returning production, it sounds good. Aesthetically, it sounds good. You would think a team that has that much coming back would still be good, but how many of those players that are back were actually good? You feel me? This stat just gets thrown out so loosely, and I just hate getting into arguments with people about certain teams that I like, and they want to throw, well, they don't bring back that much production. Dude, they are a recruiting machine. I'm never going to count out Georgia because they don't return a lot of production. Georgia constantly has new faces every single year that they pump into the NFL. They are a football factory. Bama, like, why are we questioning how good a team's going to be because of, oh, they may not return a lot of production, when Notre Dame only returned 54% production and they were close to winning it all? So I'm getting just really sick and tired of people throwing this stat out. And I made like a whole GPT prompt. If you guys want to view it, the link is down in the description. I'll link it if you guys want to check it out. I just did a little bit of research these last couple of days, because I was saying to myself, people love using this damn returning production stat. Just how important is it when it comes to how good a team's going to be? Now, there has been years in the past when you had a team like Michigan that returned a lot of production like they did the last year of Jim Harbaugh before he left for the NFL. I believe they returned like 80% or more during that season. But really, it's just more to it than just looking at that number and say, oh, yeah, this team's going to be good. I lost a lot of money betting over on the win totals on teams that returned a lot of production, and that made me realize that's just so minuscule now with all of the player and coaching movement that we have in college football. Returning production doesn't mean shit anymore.